Hi, I'm AJ Marks.
Megan Sus. I think she's the imposter.
I am the imposter.
Because I'm AJ Marks.
I vented.
And she's Megan Soliginto. And this is American Idiots Abroad. So as we said before, you're listening to American Idiots Abroad.
On this podcast, we discover what makes us uniquely American by analyzing the differences and similarities between the U.S. and the U.K. with a super cool guest each episode.
So I moved from the U.S., specifically the Boston area, to the U.K., specifically Liverpool, England, in 2016. Megan, you did something similar, didn't you?
I did do something similar. So, hi, my name is Megan. I'm a Gemini.
Too much information.
I'm from San Jose, California, and I moved from the Bay Area to Liverpool, England about 6 years ago. And this year I relocated to Manchester.
So this is part 2 of our Black Country Disco episode. So you don't need to listen to part 1 to understand part 2, but if you like part 2, you can always listen to part 1. For anyone who didn't listen to part 1, Black Country Disco is the name of our guest's debut album.
Woo-woo.
Their new album just came out, and in the first episode, we covered Black Country, and in the second episode, we're covering the disco.
So this episode's all about the differences and similarities between the U.S. and the U.K. in terms of music.
Our guest has worked with everyone from Aluna George to Grades to Snake Hips, Celeste, and MNEK. Even Kylie Minogue covered one of his songs for her album.
So we thought, who would be a better authority than singer-songwriter extraordinaire, Tom Aspaul.
Hi.
Hey, Tom.
Tom, when you were growing up as a young Brit, did you find that there were like specific songs that went with your childhood or whatever that like you don't hear in America or things like that? Because I find that to be one of the biggest differences.
Yeah.
Is our nostalgia songs.
I think it depends what era you grew up in, because in certain periods, the two music industries kind of came together and then they kind of drifted. So like in the 60s, I'm not that old, but like when my mom was growing up, there was the British invasion. And obviously in America, you had the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and Dusty Springfield, and the charts were exactly the same. And we had the Supremes and Jimi Hendrix. And I think it was very synchronized. And then I think it drifted apart in the 70s a bit. And then it came back together in the 80s. And, you know, you guys had George Michael and Elton John and Queen and Duran Duran and all of Eurythmics and all of that. But then in the 90s, things drifted apart again, except maybe for like the Spice Girls. So we have lots of bands that you wouldn't know, like Steps.
Oh my God, yeah. We do not know.
They are quite iconic. Okay, so this is a TripAdvisor from a guy called Freddie Texan. My wife and I visited Liverpool for our 30th wedding anniversary from Texas. Our evening was ruined when a man dressed as an adult baby called my wife a mad yank slut because she'd never heard of the band Steps. So 1 star. And that's that I think that sums up what the point you're trying to make, Megan.
That sums up this whole podcast.
Yeah, it does. And I can just imagine this guy in a nappy going, "You mad yank slut."
Wait, what kind of music is Steps? I actually don't know anything by Steps.
It's pop. Like, it's the most like clean. There's no curse words. It's all very, it's like ABBA, but on speed.
ABBA on speed. Oh God.
It was a mixed vocal group. It still is. They're still releasing music. And it's 2 guys, 3 girls. Most of them have got incredible voices. Like, they are great singers. And they were called Steps because initially all their songs had a dance routine, and it used to come in the CD. You'd have a little booklet that would tell you how to do the dance routine. And their their first hit was called 5, 6, 7, 8, and it was a country inspired song. It was like very dancey.
5, 6, 7, 8 by Steps. That's so on the nose.
It was like line dancing. And then they kind of evolved to do Europop dancey kind of stuff.
It's very European sounding.
Yeah, but they just did not translate to the USA. But this is such an amazing fun fact. Steps supported Britney Spears on her American tour.
No way.
Oh, what?
Yeah, I think they tried to break America.
And America stayed unbroken. Yeah, but anyway, so Steps may be very typical British pop, but it's not Brit pop. What is Brit pop?
Brit pop is normally a band and normally inspired by music from like the 60s and 70s. For me, my way of explaining it is everyone in a Britpop band, their parents were into like the Rolling Stones and the Kinks, and then they kind of regurgitated that. And then also it's slightly influenced by like in the 90s, there was like the rave scene. Dance music was quite a big thing. And so there was that element as well. But Britpop to me is like the closest would be like alt rock or indie rock in America, maybe. It's always a band. It's always instrumentation.
What bands would be examples of Britpop?
So the big two are Oasis and Blur. Those are like your textbook Britpop, and they were the most successful. And they also were successful in the United States, especially on like college radio in the 90s. Their album sold a lot in America as well. So everyone of a certain age will know the song Wonderwall in the United States, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's weird because I'd never heard of Oasis before moving here, but I had heard Wonderwall, not like the recording, but I had heard
covers
people
of it
play it on their acoustic guitar, like on a beach.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of other Britpop bands. I think after Blur and Oasis and Radiohead, there's like Suede and Placebo are quite Britpoppy, I guess. But no, actually Placebo are like a world unto themselves.
See, we don't know, or at least I don't know any of these bands. All right, I do now, but it's so fascinating to me because it is such an established genre.
Do you know Pulp?
Yes, but I can't like think of any of their songs, you know? Like I only know these names now from living here for so long.
I would say that the UK is so group heavy, especially like pop groups, but even like bands and stuff, whereas the US is so much more like focused on solo careers. And even like all the solo artists in the UK, not all, but like a lot of them just come from groups. You know, so you have like Cheryl and Robbie Williams and George Michael and all of the One Direction members. Even like Sia was popular here from 07.
Yeah.
I mean, the only one I could think of is like Elton John. But you're right, George Michael was in Wham. Annie Lennox was in the Eurythmics. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of... no one just starts out and they're like, I'm this person, listen to my music.
It's either they come from groups or they come from reality TV.
If they don't, they were in the Brit School, which was a school in Croydon, which is where Amy Winehouse went to Brit School. Adele did. I think Jessie J.
Yeah. Where did Dua come from? Dua
Lipa's kind of related to the reality thing. I think her first break was an X Factor advert. So it was like a commercial for X Factor to promote the new series. And it was a video of her when she was very young, like 15, 16. And she was just singing in her garden. And then all these people like pop their heads over the fence to like see who's singing. And it's because it's her. And it's like, have you got the X Factor?
So she was in the advert and not the show?
In the advert and not the show. And then I think she was signed possibly off the back of that. I'm not entirely sure.
Wow.
I could be wrong.
No way.
But she is an anomaly, though. I don't think it's not because of the reality TV that she became successful. Yeah, it took a long time as well for her to really get going because she released so many songs before New Rules was a big hit.
Which is so weird, like, to think about in the UK, that she already had like a handful of top 10 hits in the UK before New Rules. And then New Rules hit. And then once New Rules was dying out in like the UK and the rest of Europe, then it started to climb the charts in the US.
But that happened with Adele. I think that happened with Amy Winehouse. I think it always happens with British artists crossing over. There's always like, do you remember Natasha Bedingfield?
Yes.
Is she British?
Yeah.
So is her brother, Daniel Bedingfield. Well, obviously, but Daniel Bedingfield.
Who's Daniel Bedingfield? Is he another pop artist?
Yes, but you'll know one of his songs.
Gotta get through this.
Oh, that was a joke. I thought he was an actor. Wait, really?
Gotta get through this. You know, gotta get through this.
I gonna make my mind up for you.
Yeah, do you know that song?
Sorry, I love when people I love when people say, "Don't you know that song?" And then they kind of like, it sounds like they're making it up on the spot because the title's in it. So like, I gotta get through this. I gotta get through this. That's like what they do on like That's So Raven. Like, no, haven't you heard our biggest single, like Boys Don't Cry? Boys Don't Cry. And like that's the whole thing.
But the reason I brought up Natasha Bedingfield is because there was like nearly a 2-year delay between her Unwritten, and I think it was because it was the theme song for The Hills.
Yeah, it was huge when I was in middle school. Oh my God.
Whereas here it was kind of like moderate hit, but then it was like, massive over there in the States.
Weird.
But similar to Leona Lewis, Bleeding Love was popular in America about a year after it was in the UK.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
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 Oh.
It's fascinating because when I was in high school, I had a music blog and
Nice.
I went to go, right, classic. And I went to go interview Yumi at 6 when they were doing their first like US tour.
Mm-hmm.
Or something like, it was like either the first or second. And they were the opening act. And it was in like a mid-sized venue tour of America.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was looking them up, I knew really nothing about them. And then I just saw all these music videos and I was like, oh shit, these are like big budget and like all of these fans and stuff. And I was so confused because it was my first like real life experience of seeing a band being really big in their home country and then trying to make it over in my country. Watching the process was really fascinating.
Well, it's the opposite for me. So like I would go to the USA and I would see a show where someone's being interviewed and it's like a massive star in the UK. I think it might have been Cheryl Cole. And like, she's like, was at one point huge in the UK, and her being interviewed in the USA about the new X Factor and her being kind of treated as if this is her debut, you know what I mean? And like, she's like fresh face. And it's like, guys, no, she has been around.
Yeah. There's a sound here in Europe that just does not fly with Americans for some reason.
I think that goes both ways because my two favorite artists of all time, Janet Jackson and Mariah Carey, and both of them are like in America incredibly successful. Like Mariah has like 20 number one records. She's like the biggest selling female artist. And then Janet has maybe 10 or 12 number one records, and all her albums, have like 6 top 5 hits. She's just incredibly huge and massive. And then in the UK, both of them, Janet's never had a number one single in the UK, and Mariah's only had 2. So it's like, It's really the difference. And it's because I think Janet's sound in particular was so American and like very R&B, but also like she had that like Minneapolis sound, so specific to America and particularly Black Americans, that audience just isn't here in the UK.
Which is interesting though, because there was Northern Soul here.
Yeah.
So there was like a movement basically, for those who aren't aware, when Motown was really big, it basically came over here and was a huge hit in the north of England, and like a kind of movement called Northern Soul. I believe that's a pretty good summary.
What happened was like very obscure records, we would import them over here. And they were even records that didn't do amazingly well in the USA. They were just sort of like, because there was an explosion of music coming out of Detroit and all around there, there was just all this great music coming from America. And it all happened a little bit after. So like, I think it was like people here rediscovered it, and a lot of like the working class people just became obsessed with it. And there's this whole movement. And my mum was actually a big fan of Northern Soul. And the epicenter of it was a town called Wigan.
Yeah, Wigan. Shout out Wigan.
Shout out Wigan.
Wigan, which, people would take speed. They would stay up all night. And this is like the early 70s, like late 60s. And they would just lose their minds to this music. And it came from like Black America.
It's interesting to me how there'll be, and actually with Janet and all of them, how there's like different levels of fame for artists in different countries. But I feel like we're kind of entering a place now where that's starting to blend again. We're starting to kind of trade back and forth again. You know, you have Dua Lipa and you have Louis Capaldi,
Clean Bandit,
Adele,
your Ed Sheerans and the classic ones, yeah, that are going over. Even James Blake, Charlie XCX, Ella May.
Yeah, she's more popular in the US because she does R&B. That's why.
Yeah, it's so strange though, because she's still pretty like quintessentially British, I'd say.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just me. Like, because
No,
I feel
think
like
so. Her sound is.
Yeah, it's still, definitely a British sound. Kind of like a Mahalia.
Yes. She's from Birmingham.
I love Mahalia. Shout out Mahalia.
Yes.
But it's interesting that the new British invasion is kind of happening.
Yeah. And that's because of Spotify and streaming, and the power of radio is weakening. So people in charge of stations no longer dictate what people listen to, and people seek out music and find music themselves. And it's so easy to click on a playlist that's actually a list of hits that are big in Germany, but you'd listen to it and you would know most of it. And I think there is still a local music scene here, like with grime, grime's massive in the UK, and I'm really glad that it is, because there needs to be something local that is popping off, because it's like with the Black Country accent, like when it goes, and that's it. And it's, you know, if everything becomes homogenized, it's going to be very boring.
And let's take a short break. What do you think about that, Megan?
I love breaks.
Good. It's settled then.
Last episode, I got to play my favorite song off of Black Country Disco. So AJ, why don't you play your favorite song?
Okay, I will. I think Traces was the first song I heard off of the album, and that's kind of what got me into it. But Close to Me, that's what really like hooked me, you know? That was like when I was like, I need to pay attention to Tom Aspaul. So let's play Close to Me by Tom Aspaul.
You've written with a lot of really like modern, present, still active artists and stuff, you know, like MNEK and Grades, all these people that I'm like really big fans of. And like, because you've been so deeply involved, I would love to ask you, what do you think is the like main difference, I suppose, that you've noticed in sort of modern British versus American music?
The one that comes to mind is the way it's written, I think. In the USA, when I've written in America, it feels like it's more of a conveyor belt, and like more people will be involved, and you'll probably do more than one session a day. That does happen in the UK as well, but for me, that feels a bit more like the pop music in America is more like a factory. You know, people will just come in and write a hook and then leave. Whereas, I don't know, from my experience in the UK, it's less like that.
When you're writing for an American artist or for a British artist, it's so different. But when you're writing with an American artist or with a British artist or a mix, there's like a different vibe there as well.
Yeah, I think that's just down to like a cultural thing. I think the Americans tend to be more open about their innermost feelings and emotions, and
that's so true
with song, and that plays to their advantage in terms of songwriting, because when you walk into a room having not met anyone and you're expected to write a song about heartbreak or whatever, as a British person, for me personally, it's quite hard to open up straight away to someone you don't know. And Americans, I would remember being in the studio and being quite taken aback at how quickly people were willing to share like these really deep things about their boyfriend that happened this morning, you know, or like their girlfriend that, you know, these are things that I wouldn't share. And you do wonder, like, does this not get back to their partner? Like, are they not worried? Or
yeah,
that's so true.
Yeah, but in a way, like I think that works to their advantage, because at the end of the day, you've got a limited amount of time when you're in these studio sessions, and you've got to really do it while you're on your feet.
I feel like the amount of sessions that I've walked into where we just sit down and we just kind of like go around in a circle and not intentionally do this, but basically just be like, all right, let's just talk about all our like
feelings.
Yeah. Let's talk about all our feelings that we're feeling right now.
What's our trauma?
Yeah. Like let's just go around in a little circle of trauma and then see who has the most interesting thing to talk about. And then we'll write about that.
Exactly. There aren't enough British singers that sing in their original accent.
It's true.
Yeah, well, I'm aware of that. And I think that I sing with a mid-Atlantic accent, which is somewhere in the middle.
And then there are quite a few people who, like Lily Allen, will sing in a full British accent.
I always think of this. The only people I can think of are like Dizzy Rascal, Lily Allen, Stormzy. Adele sometimes sounds quite British, but like
Lady Lesher with like the Birmingham accent.
Yeah, she's from Birmingham.
Oh, 1975.
Ed Sheeran sometimes sounds quite British. I think for me, it's just one or two words remain British. I wouldn't ever sing can't. I'd always say can't in a song.
So like a Betty Who kind of thing where it only comes out in some words.
Yeah, it comes out in certain words. If you took any American and you asked them to speak out the way they sang, they wouldn't sound American. Like, who says us instead of us? You know what I mean? Like, no one does. But it's become like such an inflected word because of like Selena Gomez.
No, I totally agree. Yeah, Halsey, like she does that like indie singing thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone, and it was so funny. I was listening to New Music Friday this morning, and I think music kind of, everything falls into a category of like, with British singers, it's like everyone puts on a voice really, and sometimes they try really hard to sound British, and that's a bit jarring. Sometimes they try really hard to sound American, and I think that's equally as jarring. And then you get people who just try and have a really individual voice, and that's when I think it's the sweet spot, and sometimes it really works. Like Ellie Goulding has quite an unusual voice. I don't know, I'd never have like a hard R, like if I was singing. I really don't think I do that. But I don't know, maybe I do and I didn't.
I don't think many Americans do that in singing either.
No, this is like a random person to pick on, but Nicole Scherzinger has quite a British accent when she sings.
Really?
Ooh, maybe that's because she's been here for so long.
Maybe, yeah, but look, there's a song called I Hate This Part, and she sounds like she's from Boston in that one, because it's like, I hate this part right here. She's got like a...
Yeah, it's true. It is kind of weird.
And so, and like from the start, it's like she doesn't do start. And so I think Americans are as guilty as Brits.
Oh, yeah,
singing in an accent that isn't theirs.
Well, that wraps up this episode. So thank you so much for being on the podcast, Tom.
Thank you so much for having me.
Where can people lurk you and find you online?
If you so wish to follow me, it's at Tom_Aspaul. And that is the same for Instagram and Twitter. And then my website is tomaspaul.co.uk. And my merch store is on there if you want some merchandise, because I've got a really cool baby pink Black Country Disco hoodie. And then Spotify is, again, it's just my name.
So, AJ, where can people lurk you and maybe slide into your DMs and tell you really nice things?
Oh, well.
Or maybe hateful things.
You know, as much as I would love that, I would just, I'm going to ask people to just not.
Okay.
Just don't follow me.
Okay.
Don't follow me at AJ Marks Official on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, any of those. Just avoid it at all costs.
Okay. That was at AJ Marks Official?
Yes. At AJ Marks Official. Do not follow me, please.
And Megan, what about yourself? How can people follow you?
Ooh. Oh, thanks, Tom.
Yeah.
You're the first guest to chime in.
Yeah, usually she makes me do it, or she does it and pretends it's me.
Or I ask myself.
She like goes in her AJ voice and she goes, Megan.
No, so I go, so Megan. That was me trying to do Boston. I'm not going to try that again.
Please don't. So anyway, Megan, what are your socials? Sorry.
But anyway, so yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, at I Am Sola Music. And I have a new song that's just come out, and it's called Highs and Lows. You can find that anywhere that you listen to music. So that's Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer.
Exciting.
I know, isn't it just? But also, go stream Black Country Disco right now.
Scream,
Yes.
scream,
Do it.
Scream. Sorry.
Scream.
Scream Black Country.
Scream my album. Thanks, you guys. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. So we're going to go out on another one of your songs.
Yeah.
What is this one called?
This is 01902.
And this one's about what exactly?
This is the area code for Wolverhampton, which is an iconic anagram of 90210.
Yes.
It's 01902.
It's groovy as fuck.
It's groovy as fuck. I produced it in my bedroom.
Really?
Oh, sick.
Oh, yeah, dude.
I fucking love it.
So this is 01902 by Tom Aspaul.
When you go home, do people like take the piss out of you?
Yeah, sometimes.
You changed, Megan.
You changed, Megan.
You changed, Megan.
No, it's
Megan.